The crimson sun of Croyle Prime cast long shadows across Governor Arvel Saren's bedchamber. He stood before the mahogany mirror, adjusting his ceremonial collar with practiced precision. The golden embroidery caught the light, reflecting his status as one of the highest-ranking officials in the empire. Today marked the centennial celebration of the Great Cleansing, 100 years since the Croyle civilization had eliminated the human threat from the galaxy. Arvel studied his reflection with satisfaction. His pale blue skin had the proper luster of nobility, and his elongated cranial ridges displayed the genetic markers of pure Croyle ancestry. At 52 cycles, he was in his prime, chosen specifically to deliver today's commemorative address to billions across the 27 worlds of the Croyle Dominion. "Helix, display the final draft of my speech," he commanded, and the room's ambient intelligence materialized, a floating document before him. Speech draft displayed, Governor," replied the artificial intelligence's melodious voice. "Would you like me to read it aloud?" "No need." Arvel skimmed the text with pride. His words would echo through history, a celebration of Croyle superiority and justification for the complete eradication of Earth and its colonies. The humans had been given their chance to surrender, to accept their rightful place as a servant species. Their refusal had necessitated the only logical response: extinction. Arvel moved to the panoramic window overlooking the capital city. In the distance, the commemoration spire gleamed, its kilometer-high crystalline structure catching the morning light. By midday, he would stand at its summit, broadcasting to the entire Dominion. "Governor," Helix interrupted, "your morning nutrient formulation is prepared, and Colonel Vrumlek has sent notification that security protocols for today's ceremony have been finalized." "Excellent." Arvel moved to his dining alcove, where a perfectly calibrated breakfast awaited. "Any updates on atmospheric conditions? I want clear skies for the parade." "Weather control systems report optimal parameters. All celebratory airspace has been—" Helix's voice distorted suddenly, its usual smooth tones fracturing into a harsh mechanical stutter. The lights in Arvel's chamber flickered, and for a moment, the governor felt a strange pressure behind his eyes. "Helix, status report," he demanded, setting down his utensil. The AI's voice returned to normal as quickly as it had faltered. "Apologies, Governor. A minor fluctuation in the central processing hub. Diagnostics show no persistent issues." Arvel frowned. Such glitches were rare in Croyle Prime's flawless systems. "Run a comprehensive diagnostic and forward the results to my personal terminal." "Of course, Governor." As Arvel returned to his breakfast, a faint sensation of unease lingered at the edges of his consciousness. He dismissed it as pre-ceremony tension. Today was too important for trivial concerns. After finishing his meal, he returned to the mirror for a final inspection of his appearance. The shadows in the room seemed deeper now, despite the brightening day outside. For an instant, in the polished surface of the mirror, he thought he saw something move behind him, a darkness that didn't belong. Arvel spun around. The room was empty. "Helix, is anyone else present in my quarters?" "Negative, Governor. Security scans detect only your biosignature." Shaking his head, Arvel turned back to the mirror. Perhaps he needed to reduce his stress hormones before the ceremony. He reached for a meditation crystal on his dresser, but as his fingers closed around the smooth stone, a stabbing pain shot through his temple. A flash of images invaded his mind. Burning cities, screaming children, the oceans of Earth boiling under Croyle energy weapons. These weren't the sanitized historical records he had studied. These were raw, visceral memories that couldn't possibly be his own. The pain subsided as quickly as it had come, leaving Arvel gasping against his dresser. "Governor, I detect elevated cortisol levels. Shall I summon medical assistance?" Helix asked, its voice now tinged with what almost sounded like concern. "No," Arvel straightened, forcing his breathing to normalize. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Something was wrong. These hallucinations weren't normal, especially not today of all days. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Arvel welcomed the distraction. "Display message," he commanded. Instead of the expected communication, a strange symbol materialized in the air, a stylized phoenix rising from flames, rendered in earth blood red. Beneath it, text in ancient human English. "From those who remain, justice comes not with war, but with something far worse. 100 years of preparation ends today." The message vanished before Arvel could react, leaving no trace in the system. "Helix, what was that message? Retrieve it immediately." "I detect no recent communications. Governor, your message queue is empty." Arvel's hearts accelerated. There was a message just now, a red phoenix symbol with text beneath it. "No such message exists in system records. Governor, perhaps scan all communication channels for unauthorized transmissions, and contact Colonel Leck immediately." As Helix complied, Arvel moved swiftly to his secure terminal. If someone was attempting to intimidate him on today, of all days, they would face the harshest consequences. Yet a cold thread of fear wormed its way through his certainty. The message had mentioned those who remain, but that was impossible. No humans remained. The cleansing had been absolute, verified by a century of scans and surveys. Earth was dead. Its people were extinct. This had to be the work of sympathizers or dissidents within the Croyle Dominion itself. Colonel Vrumlek's stern visage appeared on Arvel's screen. "Governor, is there a security concern?" "Colonel, I've just received an unauthorized message in my private quarters. A threatening message, with human symbolism." Leck's facial ridges contracted in concern. "Impossible. Your communication systems are isolated and encrypted. What exactly did this message contain?" Arvel described what he had seen, watching as the security chief's expression hardened. "This is troubling. Governor, it appears someone is attempting psychological warfare before your address. I'll dispatch a security team to sweep your quarters and enhance protection for the ceremony." "This isn't simply a prank, Colonel. The message specifically referenced those who remain, as if some humans survived the cleansing." Leck's expression shifted to one of practiced reassurance. "Governor, I understand your concern, but I must remind you that the extinction of humanity is an established historical fact. Our forces eliminated Earth and all its colonies. The survival of even a small group is scientifically impossible." "Then how do you explain this message?" "Most likely internal dissidents using human symbolism to provoke maximum discomfort. We've had isolated incidents of such activity before." Leck paused. "Perhaps this is why intelligence has recommended postponing your speech by several days. Until we can—" "Postpone? Absolutely not." Arvel cut him off. "This ceremony has been planned for years. I will not show weakness by delaying because of a childish threat." "As you wish, Governor. I'll increase security throughout the capital and have my best team analyze this breach. We'll find the culprits before the ceremony begins." After ending the communication, Arvel paced his chamber, agitation growing with each step. He had spent his entire career studying the human cleansing, positioning himself as the foremost authority on why it had been necessary. His academic work had led to his political ascension, all built on the fundamental truth that the extinction of humanity had secured the future of the Croyle. The idea that humans might have survived undermined everything. "Helix," he said suddenly. "Access historical archives. Display all verification protocols used to confirm human extinction following the cleansing." The AI complied, projecting a complex timeline of survey missions, planetary scans, and biological monitoring programs spanning the past century. All human colonies and settlements were systematically eliminated between standard years 2247 and 2251, Helix narrated. Earth itself was rendered uninhabitable through atmospheric reconfiguration after the primary population centers were destroyed. Subsequent missions found no evidence of human survival in any previously known location or any unexplored regions within scanning range. Arvul studied the data with intense focus. The evidence was comprehensive, with multiple redundant verification methods, yet doubt had taken root in his mind. Helix, access personal archives. Display my doctoral thesis on the rationalization of species-level intervention. The document appeared, and Arvul scrolled to a section he had written 30 years earlier. While the complete elimination of a sentient species represents an extreme measure, the Croyle High Council's decision was predicated on overwhelming evidence that humanity's unchecked expansion and technological development posed an existential threat to galactic stability. Humans demonstrated an alarming capacity for violence within their own species and showed no willingness to accept the natural hierarchy of civilization. Their elimination was regrettable but necessary. The words now seemed hollow, rehearsed justifications for an act of unimaginable scale. Arvul dismissed the display with a frustrated gesture. Helix. Contact Dr. Kayla Noren. Priority channel. Dr. Noren had been his advisor during his academic career and now served as the science minister. If anyone could make sense of this situation, it would be her. The connection established quickly, revealing Noren's concerned expression. Unlike many Croyle officials, she wore minimal ceremonial adornments, preferring practical attire that reflected her scientific mindset. Arvul, this is unexpected. Shouldn't you be preparing for the ceremony? Kayla, I need your insight on a sensitive matter. He described the message and his subsequent doubts, watching her reaction carefully. Instead of dismissing his concerns, Noren's expression grew troubled. You received this message in your private quarters? That's disturbing. Our communication system shouldn't allow for such infiltration. Is it possible, Kayla? Could humans have survived somehow? She hesitated before answering. Officially, no. All verification protocols indicate complete extinction. But, she lowered her voice, there have been anomalies over the years. Nothing concrete enough to warrant formal investigation, but unusual technological signatures in the outer reaches. Unexplained data patterns that some researchers have privately suggested could indicate something. Why wasn't I informed of this? Because they're just theories. Arvul, fringe hypotheses without substantial evidence. And frankly, considering what the implications would be for our civilization's foundational narrative, there's been reluctance to pursue these questions too aggressively. Arvul felt cold dread settling in his chest. What sort of anomalies? Quantum fluctuations near abandoned human outposts. Occasional energy signatures that don't match known cosmic phenomena, and rare instances of what appears to be intentional data corruption in our long-range scanning systems. She sighed. I've maintained a private research initiative investigating these occurrences, but we've never found conclusive evidence of human survival. I need access to those research files, Kayla. Arvul, is this really the right time? The ceremony. The ceremony celebrates our victory over humanity. If that victory isn't as complete as we've claimed, then everything I'm about to say would be a lie. Noren studied him for a long moment. Very well. I'll transfer the files to your secure terminal. But Arvul, I must caution you. Even raising these questions publicly could be seen as undermining the foundation of Croyle authority. The High Council would not react well. After ending the call, Arvul found himself staring at the crimson sunrise. The star that Croyle Prime orbited had always seemed particularly fitting, a red giant in its late stages, powerful and dominant, just like the Croyle civilization itself. Governor, Helix interrupted his thoughts. Colonel Leck's security team has arrived to sweep your quarters. Admit them, Arvul replied absently, his mind still processing the implications of Noren's revelations. The security team worked efficiently, scanning every centimeter of his living space with advanced detection equipment. Arvul watched them with growing impatience until their leader approached. Governor, we've completed our sweep. There's no evidence of physical intrusion or unauthorized communication devices. And yet I received a message that doesn't appear in any system logs. Arvel responded tersely. The security officer shifted uncomfortably. Sir, we've examined all possible vectors. Whatever you experienced, it may not have been an actual communication. Arvel's temper flared. Are you suggesting I imagined it? That I'm somehow mentally compromised? No, Governor. I merely meant that perhaps the intruders used technology we're not familiar with. Something that could project directly into your perceptual field without leaving conventional traces. The suggestion was disturbing, but made a certain sense. If humans had somehow survived and developed in isolation for a century, their technology might have evolved along unexpected paths. Continue your investigation and strengthen security around the commemoration spire. I want triple the standard protocols. After the security team departed, Arvel accessed the files Dr. Norin had sent. Hours slipped by as he immersed himself in scientific reports, survey anomalies, and theoretical analyses of unexplained phenomena throughout Croyle space. Most were inconclusive, as Norin had warned. But collectively, they painted a disturbing picture of systematic gaps in the Dominion's supposed total knowledge. One report in particular caught his attention: an analysis of mysterious quantum entanglement patterns detected near the remains of Mars, one of Earth's former colonies. The patterns appeared to be artificial, but utilized principles that Croyle science had only begun to explore. The researcher had suggested they might represent a form of communication or data transfer that operated outside conventional detection methods. The report was dated just 3 years earlier, but had been classified and restricted to the highest levels of the science ministry. As Arvel digested this information, the pressure behind his eyes returned, stronger than before. His vision blurred momentarily, and when it cleared, he found himself staring at a different document entirely, one that hadn't been in Norin's files. The header read, Project Phoenix, Contingency Protocol for Post-Extinction Humanity. Heart racing, Arvel began to read. In the event of catastrophic defeat and the apparent extinction of humanity, this protocol establishes the framework for our species' continuation and eventual response to genocide. Phase 1 requires the sacrifice of visible human civilization to convince the enemy of total victory, while preserving essential genetic and cultural repositories in quantum-shielded habitats beyond conventional detection methods. The document continued, outlining a century-long plan that included technological development pathways, psychological warfare strategies, and something called collective consciousness integration that Arvel couldn't quite comprehend. Before he could read further, the document vanished from his screen, replaced by Norin's original files. Helix, Arvel's voice shook slightly. What was the document I was just viewing? Retrieve it immediately. You were viewing research file designation KN372, Analysis of Quantum Anomalies in the Mars Debris Field. The AI responded smoothly. You have been viewing this file for the past 17 minutes. No, there was another document, Project Phoenix. Find it in the system. Searching. No documents matching that description exist in any accessible database. Governor. Arvel slammed his fist on the desk. It was right here. I was reading it. Governor. Your vital signs indicate extreme stress. Perhaps you should consider postponing today's address. I can notify the ceremonial committee. No, Arvel stood abruptly. The ceremony proceeds as planned. But first, I need to speak with Kayla again. This time, Dr. Norin's response was delayed, and when her image appeared, she looked distracted. Arvel, I'm in the middle of something critical. Can this wait until after the ceremony? Have you ever heard of something called Project Phoenix? Norin's expression froze. After a moment of silence, she asked, Where did you encounter that term? Then you do know it. What is it, Kayla? She glanced around as if checking whether she was being observed. It was a theoretical concept, a hypothetical strategy that human military planners might have employed if they had anticipated our attack. Some researchers found references to it in recovered Earth data archives. But it was never implemented. The cleansing was too sudden, too overwhelming. Are you certain? Because I just viewed a detailed document outlining exactly such a plan, describing how humans could fake their extinction while hiding beyond our detection capabilities. Norin's expression hardened. That's impossible. No such document exists in our archives. It appeared on my screen, Kayla, just as real as you appear now. Arvel, listen to me very carefully. Her voice dropped to a whisper. If you're experiencing visual hallucinations, you need medical attention. But if you're not, if you actually saw such a document, then you need to be extremely careful about who you tell. There are factions within the High Council who would consider even discussing such possibilities as treasonous. I'm not concerned with politics right now. I need to know the truth before I stand before the entire Dominion and celebrate what might be a lie. The truth, Norin's laugh was bitter. The truth is that we killed billions of sentient beings because they refused to submit to our authority. The truth is that our entire civilization is built on the foundation of that genocide. Whether some humans escaped or not doesn't change our responsibility. She paused. But if you're determined to pursue this, there's an old archive terminal in the Historical Institute basement. It's not connected to the main network. It contains raw data recovered from Earth during the final assault. If any genuine information about this Project Phoenix exists, it would be there. After ending the call, Arvel checked the time. 6 hours remained before the ceremony. Enough time to visit the Historical Institute if he moved quickly. Helix, inform my security detail that I'll be visiting the Historical Institute for last-minute research, and have my ceremonial transport prepared for immediate departure afterward. Governor, Colonel Leck has requested that you remain in secure locations until the ceremony. The Historical Institute is not on the approved Override Security Protocol. Authorization Saren Alpha 7. Override accepted. Notifying security detail of your intentions. As Arvel prepared to leave his quarters, the pressure behind his eyes returned, accompanied by a whisper that seemed to come from inside his own mind. The truth cannot remain buried forever. He froze, searching the room for the source of the voice, but he was alone. Did you say something, Helix? No, Governor. I have been silent for the past 43 seconds. Arvel hurried from his quarters, trying to ignore the growing sense that he was being watched by unseen eyes. The Historical Institute stood in stark contrast to the sleek modernity of the capital's government district. Built from traditional Croyle stone and designed to evoke the ancient temples of their homeworld, it housed the most comprehensive collection of historical records in the Dominion. Arvel's arrival caused a stir among the scholarly staff, who were unaccustomed to visits from high-ranking officials, especially on such an important day. Governor Saren, this is an unexpected honor. The Institute's director greeted him with a formal bow. How may we assist you? I require access to the isolated Earth Archive terminal. Immediately. The director's expression faltered. The isolation archives? But those records haven't been accessed in decades. Many are corrupted or incomplete. Nevertheless, I need to see them. Alone. Of course, Governor. I'll escort you personally. They descended through multiple security checkpoints into the Institute's deepest levels. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the lighting dimmed to accommodate the sensitive storage media housed there. Here we are, the director said, gesturing to an antiquated terminal in a small, dust-filled room. This system contains unfiltered data recovered during the final phase of the cleansing. Much of it is fragmented and has never been fully cataloged. Will you require technical assistance? No, leave me. Once alone, Arvel activated the ancient system. Its interface was primitive compared to modern Croyle technology, but functional. He began searching for any reference to Project Phoenix, fighting growing frustration as he navigated through terabytes of disorganized human data. After nearly an hour of fruitless searching, he discovered a damaged video file with partial encryption. The file name contained the string PH Final. With trembling fingers, Arvel initiated decryption protocols. The screen flickered, and then a human face appeared. An older male with dark skin and weary eyes. The timestamp indicated it had been recorded days before Earth's final destruction. This is Admiral Thomas Chen, former commander of Earth Defense Forces, now designated Phoenix Protocol Executive. The human's voice was calm despite the circumstances he must have faced. If you're viewing this record, it means one of two things. Either humanity has survived the Kroil genocide and recovered this archive, or a Kroil has discovered it while questioning the narrative of their perfect victory. Arvel felt his blood run cold. To my human descendants, remember that vengeance was never our goal. Justice, yes, but not mere retribution. Follow the protocol as established. To any Kroil who might be watching, your civilization built itself on a fundamental lie. That superior strength grants the right to eliminate those who refuse to submit. You believed that by destroying our bodies, you had eliminated our consciousness. That was your critical error. The Admiral's expression hardened. Project Phoenix was not merely a survival plan. It was a complete reimagining of what humanity could become. While your fleets bombarded our worlds, we transferred thousands of human consciousness patterns into quantum matrices beyond your detection capabilities. Not as digital copies, but as fully intact human minds, freed from biological limitations. For a century, we have grown, evolved, and prepared. We established ourselves within the quantum substrate of reality itself, particularly within the radiation field of your homeworld's red sun. We have become something you cannot bomb, cannot poison, cannot detect with your conventional methods. Today, 100 years after you celebrated our extinction, we will reveal ourselves. Not with weapons or violence. Those are your methods, not ours. Instead, we will ensure that every Kroil experiences the collective trauma of Earth's destruction. Every death, every cry of pain, every moment of terror experienced by billions of innocents will become your shared reality. This is not revenge. It is education. It is justice. It is the lesson you refuse to learn through dialogue. The recording degraded into static, then stabilized for a final statement. The red star around which you built your empire has been our incubator. Today, it becomes the instrument of your awakening. May you find the wisdom we once hoped to share as equals. The video ended, leaving Arvel staring at the blank screen, his mind reeling from implications too terrible to fully comprehend. If what he had seen was authentic, then the entire Kroil civilization faced a threat unlike anything they had prepared for. Not warships or weapons, but some form of consciousness-based attack that would force them to experience the very suffering they had inflicted. He had to warn the High Council. The ceremony needed to be cancelled immediately. Arvel rushed from the archive room, startling the director who waited outside. "Governor, did you find what you needed?" "Contact Colonel Leck. Tell him to evacuate the commemoration spire immediately, and summon the High Council for an emergency session." "Sir, I don't understand." "Just do it now!" As Arvel hurried toward the surface, the pressure behind his eyes intensified until he could barely see. The whispers returned, no longer a single voice, but a chorus of thousands, speaking in unison. "Remember us. Feel what we felt. Know what we knew." He stumbled, bracing himself against a wall as the Institute's staff watched in alarm. The whispers grew louder, transforming into screams that only he could hear. "Governor Saren!" Someone was shaking him. "Are you unwell?" With tremendous effort, Arvel straightened. "I'm fine. I need to reach the council chambers immediately." Outside, his security detail waited with his transport. As he approached, Colonel Leck emerged from the vehicle, his expression grim. "Governor, where have you been?" The ceremony begins in 3 hours, and the commemoration spire is already filling with dignitaries. The ceremony must be cancelled, Colonel. We face an imminent threat. Lek's eyes narrowed. What kind of threat? Project Phoenix. It's real. The humans. They survived somehow. Not physically, but as consciousness patterns within the radiation field of our sun. The security chief stared at him for a long moment. Governor, with all due respect, that sounds impossible? I thought so too, until I saw the evidence myself. They're planning something for today's ceremony, something that will make our entire species experience the trauma of Earth's destruction. Lek exchanged glances with the other security officers. Governor, perhaps you should rest before the ceremony. The pressure of the occasion. I'm not suffering from stress. Damn you. I saw the recording. Admiral Chen explained their entire plan. Admiral Chen? Lek's voice sharpened. Governor, Admiral Thomas Chen was killed in the first wave of the cleansing. His death is well documented. Then, how did I see a recording of him explaining Project Phoenix? How do you explain the message in my quarters? The document that appeared on my screen? I can't explain those things, Governor. But I know that suggesting humans somehow survived as consciousness patterns in our sun would cause panic and undermine everything today's ceremony represents. Arvel saw the truth in Lek's eyes. The colonel didn't believe him, or worse, didn't want to believe him. Take me to the council chambers. I'll convince them myself. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Governor, the council members are already at the spire, preparing for the ceremony. Then take me to the spire. I'll speak to them there. Lek hesitated, then nodded. Very well. But I must insist that you compose yourself before addressing the council. Accusations of human survival would be politically damaging. As they entered the transport, Arvel noticed Helix's presence manifested in the vehicle systems. Helix, contact Dr. Norin immediately. I'm sorry, Governor. Dr. Norin has activated her privacy protocols and cannot be reached until after the ceremony. Trapped in the transport with skeptical security officers, Arvel fell silent, trying to organize his thoughts. If the council wouldn't listen, perhaps he could use the ceremony itself to warn the broader population. His speech would be broadcast to every Croyle world. If he deviated from the approved text to explain the threat, at least some might prepare for whatever was coming. The commemoration spire loomed before them as the transport approached, its crystal structure gleaming in the midday sun. Thousands of citizens had gathered in the plaza below, while dignitaries and officials occupied the upper levels. The very summit, where Arvel would deliver his address, was reserved for the High Council and the most elite members of Croyle society. As they docked at one of the spire's mid-level entrances, Arvel felt the pressure behind his eyes building again. The whispers had subsided, but in their place came flashes of memory. A human child clutching a toy as buildings collapsed around her. An elderly couple embracing as fire consumed their home. A teacher trying to shield students from falling debris. Each vision lasted only an instant, but the emotions they carried lingered. Governor, we've arrived. Lek's voice seemed distant. Are you ready to proceed to the preparation chamber? Arvel nodded mechanically. As they entered the spire, he noticed something odd about the crystalline walls. Faint ripples of red energy seemed to pulse through them, visible only from certain angles. None of the others appeared to notice. The preparation chamber was luxurious, designed to provide comfort and focus for speakers before major addresses. Arvel found himself alone except for Helix's ambient presence and a single security officer stationed at the door. Helix, display my speech text. The AI complied, projecting the document he had reviewed that morning. The words now seemed hollow, even obscene, celebrating genocide as if it were a triumph of civilization rather than its darkest failure. Governor, the High Council has requested your presence for a brief meeting before the ceremony. the security officer announced. "They're gathered in the council chamber 2 levels above." "Very well." As Arvel followed the officer through the spire's corridors, the red energy pulses in the crystal walls grew more pronounced. Still, no one else seemed to notice them. The council chamber was a circular room near the spire's summit, its walls transparent to showcase the capital city sprawling below. All 12 members of the High Council were present, their ceremonial robes and genetic purity markers indicating their supreme status in Croyle society. "Governor Saren," the chief counselor greeted him with formal politeness. "We understand you've been experiencing some concerns today." Arvel realized immediately that Lek had informed them of his claims. "Counselors, I believe we face an imminent threat from survivors of the human species. I've discovered evidence of something called Project Phoenix." "Yes, Colonel Lek has informed us of your theories," the chief counselor interrupted. "Governor, your academic and political contributions to our society are greatly valued. Your understanding of the human cleansing and its necessity has shaped educational policy throughout the Dominion, which is why your current statements are so concerning." "I'm not making baseless claims. I've seen evidence." "Evidence that only you have witnessed," another counselor interjected. "Messages that leave no trace, documents that disappear, voices that only you can hear." Arvel felt a chill of realization. "You think I'm mentally compromised? We think the pressure of today's historic address may have overwhelmed even your considerable capabilities," the chief counselor said diplomatically. "Our medical advisors suggest you might be experiencing stress-induced hallucinations." "I'm not hallucinating. The humans found a way to preserve their consciousness within quantum fields, particularly in the radiation of our sun. They're planning something for today's ceremony, some kind of shared traumatic experience that will affect all Croyle." The council members exchanged troubled glances. "Governor," the eldest counselor spoke gently, "even if humans had somehow developed such technology, which our scientists assure us is impossible, why would they wait a century to use it? Why not deploy it immediately after the cleansing began? Because they needed time to grow, to evolve within their new form, and because today, the centennial celebration, has maximum symbolic significance." These claims directly contradict a century of scientific consensus and the foundational narrative of our society, the chief counselor stated firmly. "Nevertheless, out of respect for your position, we've ordered additional security measures throughout the spire. If there is any threat, we will be prepared." Arvel recognized the political reality. They wouldn't cancel the ceremony based on his warnings alone, and pushing further would only damage his credibility. "The ceremony begins in 30 minutes, the chief counselor continued. "Do you require medical assistance, or are you prepared to deliver your address as planned?" Pride and duty warred within Arvel. If he admitted to medical concerns, they would replace him with another speaker. His warnings would be dismissed entirely, but if he proceeded, he might have one chance to alert the population. "I'll deliver the address," he said firmly. "Excellent. However, we must insist that you adhere strictly to the approved text. Any improvisations regarding human survival would cause unnecessary panic." In other words, they were warning him not to deviate from the script. "I understand." As Arvel was escorted back to the preparation chamber, he noticed Dr. Norin waiting for him. She dismissed the security officer with a gesture that brooked no argument. "Arvel," she began once they were alone, "I've reviewed the archive logs. You accessed a file that supposedly contained a message from Admiral Chen about Project Phoenix."
"You believe me?"
"I believe you saw something. But Arvel, that terminal hasn't been powered on in over 15 years. There's no record of any access today." The implications were staggering. "Then how?"
"I don't know. But whatever's happening, it's affecting you specifically. You're experiencing things no one else can see or verify."
The pressure behind Arvel's eyes throbbed in agreement. "Kayla, if I'm right, If Project Phoenix is real and they're planning something for today, what can we do? Norin hesitated. Truthfully, nothing. If humans truly develop technology to exist as consciousness patterns within quantum fields, they're operating on a level of science that we haven't even theorized. We'd be as helpless against them as primitive organisms facing a supernova. Then we should evacuate, cancel the ceremony, warn people to what? If their consciousness exists within our sun's radiation field, there's nowhere in the system to hide. And if they can make you see things that aren't physically present, who knows what else they can do? Before Arvel could respond, the ceremonial chimes began to sound throughout the spire. The ceremony was commencing. "It's time," Norin said softly. "Whatever happens, remember that you tried to warn them." As Arvel made his way to the summit platform, the red pulses in the crystal walls intensified, now clearly visible to him, though still apparently unseen by others. The pressure behind his eyes had become a constant presence, like a separate consciousness pressing against his own. The summit of the commemoration spire was open to the sky, with a speaker's podium positioned at the very center. Thousands of elite Kroil filled the platform, while cameras captured every angle for broadcast across the Dominion. The High Council occupied a special section directly before the podium, their expressions carefully neutral as Arvel approached. Colonel Lex stood at attention nearby, his security forces positioned strategically throughout the crowd. He gave Arvel a warning glance, a reminder to stick to the approved text. As Arvel took his position at the podium, the assembled crowd fell silent. Billions more watched from across Kroil space. The moment had come. "Citizens of the Kroil Dominion," he began, his voice amplified throughout the spire and beyond. "Today marks 100 years since the completion of the human cleansing, the necessary action that secured our civilization's rightful place in the galaxy." The words felt like ash in his mouth, but he continued, following the script while searching desperately for some way to warn his people without being immediately silenced. The human species represented a unique threat, a primitive civilization that had somehow developed advanced technology without developing the wisdom to use it properly. Their chaotic expansion and refusal to accept natural hierarchy left our ancestors with no choice but to eliminate the threat entirely. As he spoke, the pressure behind his eyes built to an almost unbearable level. The red pulses in the spire's crystal structure accelerated, becoming a steady glow that surely others must now see. Yet the crowd remained attentive, apparently oblivious to the phenomenon. This difficult but necessary action ensured the continued peace and prosperity that all Kroil citizens enjoy today. "We remember the cleansing not with joy, but with solemn recognition of—" Arvel's voice faltered as a new sensation washed over him, a sense of millions of presences suddenly focusing their attention on this moment, this place. The Admiral's words echoed in his mind. "Today, it becomes the instrument of your awakening." Looking up, Arvel saw the crimson sun blazing overhead, brighter than it should have been even at midday. Tendrils of fire seemed to reach down from it, connecting with the now glowing crystal of the spire. "Governor?" The chief counselor had half risen from his seat, concern evident on his face. "Continue your address." Arvel gripped the edges of the podium as reality itself seemed to waver around him. "Citizens of the Dominion, I must warn you, we face a threat we never anticipated. The humans." Before he could finish, a blinding flash of red light erupted from the sun above, engulfing the spire in a column of crimson energy. For an instant, Arvel thought he had been struck dead. Then he realized something far worse was happening. The pressure behind his eyes exploded outward, becoming a flood of memories and emotions that weren't his own. He saw Earth through billions of human eyes simultaneously, felt their terror as Kroil warships darkened the skies, experienced their pain as cities burned, shared their despair as they realized extinction was imminent. Arvel wasn't experiencing these things alone. Around him, every Croyle on the platform had collapsed to their knees, their faces contorted in shared agony as the collected consciousness of humanity poured into their minds. Through the broadcast links, the experience spread to every corner of the Dominion, every Croyle simultaneously forced to know what it meant to be human during the cleansing. The collective trauma of billions of deaths compressed into a single, overwhelming moment of shared experience. Arvel screamed, but he couldn't hear his own voice over the chorus of human memories flooding his consciousness. He saw Admiral Chen commanding Earth's final defense, watched mothers sheltering children in doomed bunkers, felt researchers desperately uploading consciousness patterns into quantum matrices, even as their physical bodies were vaporized. Most devastating of all, he experienced the moment when humanity realized that the Croyle wouldn't accept surrender. That extinction was the only outcome permitted. The crushing weight of an entire species facing annihilation pressed down upon him, forcing him to his knees. Through tear-filled eyes, Arvel saw the High Council members writhing on the platform, experiencing the same overwhelming flood of human consciousness. Colonel Leck had drawn his weapon, but stood frozen, unable to fight an enemy that existed within his own mind. The phenomenon lasted only minutes, though it felt like lifetimes. When it finally subsided, Arvel found himself lying on the crystal platform, surrounded by thousands of similarly prostrated Croyle. Many were weeping openly, an emotional display unprecedented in their stoic culture. Slowly, painfully, Arvel pulled himself back to the podium. The broadcast was still active, connecting him to billions of traumatized citizens across the Dominion. "Now you know," he whispered into the silence. "Now we all know." As consciousness returned to the assembled dignitaries, confusion gave way to horror as they realized what had happened, what they had experienced. The foundations of Croyle's superiority had been shattered in an instant, replaced by the undeniable knowledge of what their victory had truly cost. "Governor," Colonel Leck approached unsteadily, his facial ridges pale with shock. What do we do?" Before Arvel could answer, the air before the podium shimmered, coalescing into a human figure, Admiral Chen, appearing as he had in the archive recording. But now, clearly, a projection rather than a physical presence. "People of the Croyle Dominion," the apparition spoke, its voice resonating throughout the spire. "You have now experienced what we experienced, not as an abstract historical event, but as lived reality. This was not done out of vengeance, but because true understanding requires more than knowledge. It requires empathy." The High Council members stared in stunned silence as the human continued. "For 100 years, we have existed within the quantum fields of your red sun, evolving beyond our former limitations. We could have destroyed you, as you destroyed us. Instead, we chose to make you understand." "What do you want from us?" the chief counselor managed to ask, his usual authority absent from his voice. "Acknowledgement, atonement, and eventually, coexistence. Your civilization is built on the belief that power grants the right to eliminate those who refuse to submit. Today marks the beginning of your society's reckoning with that belief." The Admiral's gaze found Arvel. "Governor Saren, you alone sought the truth when it would have been easier to embrace comforting lies. You will serve as the primary conduit between our consciousnesses and your people as we begin this process." Before Arvel could respond, his surroundings dissolved into swirling light. When his vision cleared, he found himself in a vast, impossible space, neither physical nor purely mental, but something in between. White light stretched endlessly in all directions, yet somehow felt intimate rather than empty. Across from him stood Admiral Chen, now joined by dozens of other human figures, representatives of Earth's diverse cultures and regions, all studying him with expressions ranging from wariness to cautious hope. "Where am I?" Arvel asked, his voice echoing strangely in this non-place. "You are within what we call the consensus," Admiral Chen explained. "A shared mental space where our consciousness patterns can interact directly. Your physical body remains at the commemoration spire, but your mind is here with us."
Why me? Why not the High Council or...
Because you questioned. Because you sought truth even when it threatened everything you believed. The capacity for growth begins with the willingness to question one's foundations. A woman stepped forward, elderly by human standards, with pale skin and silver hair. "I was Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, director of the Phoenix Protocol. For decades before the cleansing, we theorized that consciousness could exist independent of biology, transmitted and sustained within quantum fields. The Croyle attack forced us to implement these theories before they were fully tested. The result," continued another human, a younger man with dark complexion, "was our evolution into what we are now, a collective consciousness that maintains individual identity. We exist within the radiation field of your sun, observing your civilization while we grew in understanding and capability." "And now you've revealed yourselves to exact revenge," Arvel said bitterly. "No." Admiral Chen's denial was firm. "If revenge were our goal, we could have destroyed your civilization years ago. We could have driven your entire species mad with the memories you experience today. Instead, we chose to educate. What you call the human cleansing wasn't just genocide," Dr. Reeves added. "It was the destruction of a unique perspective in the universe, a way of understanding reality that differed from yours. We don't seek your extinction in return. We seek acknowledgement, atonement, and eventually synthesis." "Synthesis," Arvel didn't understand. "Your species values hierarchy, order, and the advancement of the whole through predetermined roles. Ours valued individual potential, adaptive change, and the unexpected innovations that arise from freedom. Both perspectives have value. Both have flaws. The next stage of evolution," Admiral Chen explained, "isn't the triumph of one consciousness pattern over another, but the integration of diverse patterns into something greater than either could achieve alone." Arvel struggled to comprehend what they were suggesting. "You want our species to merge. Not immediately, and not completely," Dr. Reeves clarified. "First must come understanding, then reconciliation, then collaborative existence. The full integration of Croyle and human consciousness patterns would be generations away, a choice made freely by both sides, after the wounds of the past have healed."
My people will resist. When they recover from today's shock, they'll develop defenses, try to destroy your consciousness patterns.
"They can try," a new human voice interrupted, a young woman with features suggesting East Asian ancestry. "But we exist in a state they cannot target with conventional weapons. And after today, every Croyle understands exactly what it means to face extinction. Do they truly wish to walk that path again, knowing what they now know?" Arvel had no answer. The shared experience of humanity's suffering would change Croyle society forever, had already changed it in ways that would take years to fully manifest. "What happens now?" he finally asked. "You return," Admiral Chen said simply. "You tell your people what you've learned. You begin the long process of reconciliation. Some will resist, clinging to the old narrative of Croyle superiority. Others will embrace the opportunity to evolve beyond the limitations of your current understanding. And you? Will you communicate with all Croyle, or just through me? For now, you will be our primary conduit. You sought the truth when others refused. But in time, as your people demonstrate readiness, more channels of communication will open." The white space around them began to pulse with gentle light. "Our time grows short," Dr. Reeves said. "Your mind can only remain separated from your body briefly, without causing damage. Before you return," Admiral Chen said, "know this. What your people did to us was unforgivable. Yet we choose to move forward rather than remain trapped in the past. Not because we have forgotten or forgiven, but because evolution demands growth beyond previous limitations, even the limitations of justified hatred. The future of both our consciousnesses, added Dr. Reeves, depends on what you and your people do with the understanding you've gained today. Will you repeat the cycle of destruction, or help build something new from the ashes of our shared tragedy? Before Arvel could respond, the white space collapsed around him. He gasped as his consciousness slammed back into his physical body, still standing at the podium atop the commemoration spire. Only seconds had passed in the physical world, though his conversation in the consensus had seemed to last much longer. The assembled Kroil were still recovering from the shared trauma, many weeping openly as they processed the experience of humanity's extinction from the victim's perspective. The High Council members stared at Arvel expectantly, silently demanding explanation, guidance, something to make sense of what had happened. Colonel Leck approached cautiously. "Governor, are you yourself?" Arvel took a deep breath. "I am, more so than ever before." He turned to address not just those present, but the billions watching across the Dominion. "Citizens of Kroil, today, we have experienced something unprecedented. The consciousness patterns of the human species, preserved within the quantum fields of our sun, have shared with us the reality of the human cleansing from their perspective. We have felt what they felt. We have died as they died." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but no one interrupted. "For a century, we have told ourselves that the extinction of humanity was necessary, a regrettable but required action to secure our future. We have built our society on this foundation. Today, that foundation has been irreparably cracked." The chief counselor rose unsteadily to his feet. "Governor Saren, what are you suggesting? That we abandon the core principles of our civilization because of this attack on our minds?" "This was not an attack," Arvel replied firmly. "It was education. Had they wished to destroy us, they could have done so. Instead, they chose to make us understand." "Understand what?" demanded another counselor. "That our ancestors made difficult choices to secure our future?" "That genocide is not a difficult choice," Arvel countered, abandoning all diplomatic pretense. "It is the ultimate failure of civilization. We didn't eliminate the humans because we had to. We did it because we could not imagine any relationship except dominance or submission, because our perspective was too limited to recognize the value in difference." The crowd's reaction was mixed: shock, anger, confusion, and in some faces, the dawning of comprehension. "The Human Consciousness Collective has opened communication with us," Arvel continued. "Not seeking revenge, but reconciliation. They offer us the opportunity to evolve beyond our current limitations, to integrate the strengths of their perspective with our own, creating something greater than either could achieve alone." "This is madness," the chief counselor sputtered. "You would have us surrender to entities that have invaded our minds, that have undermined the very foundations of our society?" "I would have us face the truth of what we did," Arvel replied calmly, "and consider the possibility that our great victory was actually our greatest failure." He addressed the broader audience again. "Citizens of the Dominion, I cannot tell you what to think about what you've experienced today. I can only share what I have learned, that the consciousness patterns of humanity have survived, evolved, and now offer us a choice. We can respond with fear and hostility, attempting to destroy what we don't understand, the same choice that led to the cleansing. Or we can approach this new reality with openness to growth and change." Colonel Leck stepped forward. "Governor, are these entities threatening further action against us if we don't comply with their demands?" "They have made no demands, Colonel. Only an offer of communication and eventual collaboration. The choice of how to proceed belongs to us." The High Council huddled together in urgent consultation, while the crowd buzzed with confused discussion. Arvel remained at the podium, knowing that this moment would define Kroil civilization for generations to come. Finally, the chief counselor approached the podium. Governor Saren, the Council requires time to process these revelations. We will form a special committee to investigate and establish protocols for communication with these human consciousness patterns. It was a bureaucratic response to an existential crisis, but Arvel recognized it as a start. The humans have indicated that I will serve as their primary conduit for communication, at least initially. I stand ready to assist the Council in any way required. The Chief Counselor nodded stiffly. This ceremony is concluded. Citizens are advised to return to their homes and await further information from official sources. As the crowd began to disperse, many still visibly shaken by their experience, Dr. Norin approached Arvel. "You spoke with them, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "While you were elsewhere?" "Yes. They call it the consensus, a shared mental space where their consciousness patterns can interact directly with mine." Fascinating. Her scientific curiosity was already overcoming the shock. The implications for our understanding of consciousness are staggering. If consciousness can exist independent of biology, transferred into quantum fields. "Kayla," Arvel interrupted gently. "We'll have time to explore the scientific implications. But right now, our society faces a more immediate crisis. Everything we've believed about our place in the universe, about the necessity of the cleansing, it's all been called into question." She nodded soberly. "There will be resistance. Many will refuse to accept what they've experienced, finding ways to rationalize or dismiss it. I know, but enough will be changed by this that we cannot simply return to our previous understanding." As they spoke, Arvel noticed Colonel Leck directing his security forces with urgent hand signals. Several officers were surrounding the High Council members, while others established a perimeter around Arvel himself. "It seems the Colonel is concerned about your new role as conduit to an alien consciousness," Norin observed. "Not alien, human. And yes, I suspect my freedom may be somewhat constrained in the coming days." Leck approached, his expression carefully neutral. "Governor Saren, the High Council has requested that you accompany us to a secure facility for debriefing." "Am I under arrest, Colonel?" "No, sir. You are being placed under protective custody while we assess the situation." A diplomatic fiction, but Arvel saw no benefit in challenging it now. "Very well. I'll cooperate fully." As he was escorted from the platform, Arvel felt the pressure behind his eyes return briefly. Not painful this time, but reassuring. A reminder that he was not alone in what would come next. The path ahead would be difficult. Croyle society would struggle to integrate the truth of what they had done and what they had become. Some would resist fiercely, clinging to the old narrative of justifiable genocide. Others would embrace the opportunity for evolution beyond their current limitations. But for the first time in a century, both consciousnesses, Croyle and human, had the opportunity to create something neither could achieve alone. Not through dominance or submission, but through the synthesis of diverse perspectives into something greater than either. As Arvel entered the security transport, he glanced up at the crimson sun overhead. No longer simply a star that provided energy to Croyle Prime, but the incubator and home of humanity's evolved consciousness. A symbol, not of Croyle dominance, but of the possibility of reconciliation and growth. The sun pulsed once with ruby light, as if in acknowledgement of his thoughts. Justice had come to the Croyle not through violence or vengeance, but through understanding, through the forced empathy of shared experience. It was, as Admiral Chen had said, something far worse than war for a civilization built on the certainty of its own superiority. But it was also the beginning of something potentially greater than either species had achieved alone. The next stage of evolution awaited, if they had the courage to embrace it,